Hi all, welcome back to Kitchen Confidential. We're at week 2 talking about creating a killer UC application. I'm here tonight with Dr. Cynthia Colon and Vince Garcia from Q&A College Admissions and myself, Caryl Kristensen, who will remain behind the camera but not speechless. So here we go. We're going to dive in tonight. Cynthia, who do we have today?
Okay, well, we are going to be unveiling Jay, who is a great STEM kid, and I'm super excited for you to meet Jay, and we're going to dissect him. But before we dive into that, it's really important to understand sort of the context and why we're doing this.
Yes.
We have 2 virtual comprehensive boot camps that are coming in July, and Vince will share with you about that. But just so you understand, why do we focus on the UC application? Well, I'll tell you why. Because last season, 2017, those students who were applying to start school this fall, there were over 220,000 applicants to all of the UC campuses in its entirety. So that means 220,000 different students applied to, some of them applied to one of the UC campuses, and many of them, of course, applied to multiple campuses. So when we talk about the UC campuses, we're really talking about the 8 campuses that admit undergraduate students. We know that there's a 9th college, UC San Francisco, which is not for undergraduates, but there were 4 of the 8 campuses had over 100,000 applicants, transfer and freshmen. And 5 of the 8 UC campuses had over 80,000 freshman applications. Okay, so when we talk about applying to UCs, we say to students, you get 4 essays, 350 words each, 1,400 words total. That's it. No teacher letters of recommendation. So really, this essay and really taking a real comprehensive and a strategic look at where to apply, how to apply, what to say, which major to choose. Those are things that are all so critical to having the right kind of UC application submitted. So tell us what we would do in our camp.
I think in the boot camp, we offer the course through Teachable. It's an online course and it's on demand. So let's say you're on vacation and you miss one of the days. You can go back and you can watch at your leisure and you can do the activities. The best thing about the boot camp is that it's so important to get good editing and professional eyes on your application. And all of us have a massive amount of experience reviewing and helping seniors, whether they apply to the University of California, the CSU system, or another application. But on this one, we're really focused on making a killer application. So join us by signing up at Q&A College Admissions and look for the details. We'll talk more about them tonight.
We will. And there's so much strategy that goes into it. And when we're talking about authentic strategy, it's important for people to understand, parents who are watching, this is not contrived. It's just, teenagers are teenagers and they have lots of good stories to share. They just often don't know how to put that all together. And we're there to really guide them through the process of how to make that all work and work well.
Yeah, and the University of California has created a terrific application where they really try to understand the context in which you're learning. And both in your high school, your family, in the state of California, sometimes in the United States, and sometimes globally. Yeah. Over 20% of applicants are now coming from international. So they also have a context to talk about, and they add a diversity and richness to the University of California that's important to them. But tonight we're going to be talking about a young man who applied through engineering.
I love this kid.
And one of the things that we want to talk about is we kind of go through all the different facets of who Jay is. Right. And one of the things that we always sort of lead with, the academic component is the most important part of the process.
Absolutely.
And UC GPA unweighted and capped weighted GPA. Talk a little bit about what that means, Cynthia.
So not everybody knows that, when you look at your high school transcript, you're looking at a full GPA 9th through 12th grade, right? Or right now it's 9th through 11th grade. So your overall GPA, there's the weighted and the unweighted. Well, the UC system is a little bit unique. They always do things a little bit differently. They take your sophomore and junior year and they recalculate your GPA. And we're gonna help you do that in the course, of course. So we come up with an unweighted GPA and a weighted GPA. Now, many people say, I took all these APs and honors classes, and I took 12 of them. Well,
they cap them.
They cap them. So the good news is you took them, and great, and all the better for you. But the UC system is going to cap it at 8, a maximum of 8 courses. So there's a maximum, and sort of also kind of a level playing field, I think, for the students across California, because not every high school has all of those offerings.
Right. So they also look at AP and honors and IB courses. They also look at your course school context. So let's say your school doesn't offer them. They're going to look at the ways you decided to challenge yourself. Did you go outside of that? Did you take community college courses or do other coursework that help prepare you for the particular major? So Jay did a great job academically. Overall, had two. Oh, there's Jay. Great. We're going to look at the unweighted and the capped UC GPA. They were perfect. They had a 4.0.
And a weighted UC GPA of 4.4 in 10th and 11th grade.
Right. And the only B's that Jay had during the time before he applied to the University of California were in 9th grade. And those particular B's were challenging, but what the University of California sees is they began to see an upward trend. So what we start to see after we look at the GPA is we look at the number of honors and AP courses that they offered in their high school. And Cynthia, talk a little bit about the number of AP courses this student took.
Okay, so he took, let's see, there were a total of 51, what does that mean?
So the courses with A through G classes, they look at the number of courses you took each year, academic courses that pertain to the A through G courses. So that's English and history and language and science. This student each semester represents 1. So 2 semesters of 6 or 5 classes will give you the total amount of UC courses you took over the 4 years that you're in high school.
And what does an average student take in terms of course count versus a student like Jay who's quite competitive?
So an average student would take 5. So 5 times 2 is 10, times 4 is 40. So the average is 40. And we can see that Jay's course count, he obviously took more academic courses each year than the average student. In fact, this individual, and you'll see this a little bit later, took 2 college courses. One was in math, so they could take calculus by their junior year and BC calculus in their senior year. They also took an engineering science class so they could really figure out what branch of engineering they were most interested in studying.
Now, somebody looking at this is going to say, "What is 4?" This is my question. I was like, "Oh, what is 4.5? What does that mean?" And I was like, "Okay, 4.5 AP courses meant that he took 4 courses, and then there was probably one that was only semester government, right?
Right.
So there, just so you know, if you're watching this, you're thinking, "What's that half AP? Did he drop out?" No, he didn't drop out of an AP. There are some APs. I think actually only government. That's a half semester. So Jay took a total of 7.5 AP courses in his time.
And this is not counting honors courses, which
Correct.
would also include probably another 4 courses that were honors, but we just put the APs there.
We put the APs because that was close to his cap.
Right. The other thing that we did is they're going to look at your testing. And the University of California, each campus makes specific recommendation regarding if you should submit subject tests. For engineering,
Yep.
there is a recommendation for three of the campuses that you take subject tests, typically in math and one in science.
And we'll see that slide in a minute.
Okay. So we're going to move on and talk about activities. And I just love this because, so the theme, if you're not clear quite yet, the theme here is Jay is not only did he apply as an engineering major, he is living, breathing engineering from like the time he was pretty young or leading into high school. So let's look at his activities. He was on a state robotics team. They placed first place, and he was captain of this team. One of the things that I love about when I was reviewing this applicant before now is that he did some work at a makerspace, sort of a local makerspace, so not at school, even though some schools do have makerspaces. He went above and beyond and went outside of school to really do some work at a makerspace.
And Cynthia, Caryl, tell us what's a makerspace?
So a makerspace is a community space that actually caters to the STEM areas, and it allows students as well as adults and children to go in and experiment in those different STEM areas. They can create projects on their own, you can take specific classes, and you can also lead classes, which is something that Jay ended up doing.
Yes.
Eventually he started there as a student. He did things like 3D printing, he did
Virtual reality,
even origami,
yes,
for example, which is very closely related to engineering.
So the only makerspaces I've been to are the ones that are actually in schools, right? And we had students that would do things. So what this kid does is goes outside of his campus,
right,
does this makerspace, finds a place, and he starts blogging about it.
Right.
And so he's blogging about his experiments. So I think about Julia Child, right? Or
Yeah.
the movie,
Yeah.
right? Or not Julia Child, but like the movie where
Yeah.
the other Julia was doing a recipe a day and
Right.
then talking about how it worked out. This is what this kid did, right? I have to always have like a metaphor,
Being
like
Julia.
that, like
Yeah.
being Julia. Thank you. So this is what this kid did. This kid goes in and he's going and he's doing these experiments, these three-dimensional cutouts and origami and virtual reality, all these things.
and the neon lights and everything.
And then he blogs about what worked, what didn't work, what he's going to do differently next time. And so that's out there. And so he's a teacher. He's a natural teacher teaching something that he loves doing, right?
Right.
So one of the takeaways for me is like, how are you as a student, as a teenager, doing what you love to do, using your time and talent for the greater good of someone else? And that's what he was doing here. He's the co-founder of STEAM. Then he takes that love and creates an organization, and then delivers events and products. Events
And activities.
Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. To other diverse communities that he does on his own, from ages, you should say,
Yeah, from 3 to 18.
3 to 18. I just love this. And then he did some research on a university campus. Again, all connected with this STEM or STEAM. And those of you who are not familiar with the term STEAM, the A is for arts. And then he was also an athlete, and he started out as an athlete. But if I remember correctly, he at the end gave up being an athlete because he really wanted to focus in on doing all of these STEAM activities.
Yes,
So,
yes.
yeah.
And so occasionally there's a time where you might drop one of your activities because you recognize that your academic commitments and other commitments are maybe more important to you in terms of the long term.
Right.
So this
Right.
student felt that in order to be as successful as they were academically, they had to back away from that one particular activity. But they
he
found
filled that space
Yes.
with some really highly academic, applied versions of what he was interested in.
right.
And so that was the key, was that he took it from school to the community.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to inject that sometimes it's it's quality versus quantity. Sometimes, and when you're a freshman, maybe it's trying a lot of different things before you find your passion. So.
Right.
And I think what's unique about him too is that everything was very focused, and so he ends up he starts to align his courses with his interest.
Right.
He takes courses outside. He challenges himself by taking college level courses, and also realizes, as Vince is pointing out, that he took pre-calculus because he knew if he wasn't in calculus by his senior year, there was no way he was going to be in engineering.
In fact, not only was he in calculus, but he was in BC because he took that class after his sophomore year. So it took AB junior year and BC senior year.
So that was fantastic.
We also talked a little bit about testing. So we talked about how 3 of the UCs require subject tests if you're going to major in engineering. They strongly recommend them. And you see that this particular student had success in the 3 subject tests that they took. 2 of the AP exams, they got 5s, and a 4 in U.S. history, which is outside of science, so it shows that the student is good in multiple subject areas, and I think that was really impressive to students.
Right, and so it didn't matter that he didn't hit the 700 mark on the chemistry exam because he was so proficient in math and then also in U.S. history, but his testing overall, his cumulative score of 1470 was really good.
Right.
But all this other stuff that he did made up for the fact that he wasn't over 700. So in some cases, yes, the numbers matter, but when you have this cumulative look or perspective on a student, this is what matters because they're seeing immediately, they see the passion and the commitment towards the area of study.
Yeah, some of you watching may be thinking, oh my gosh, 700, wow, does everybody have to have 700? And when it's just important to know that when you are applying for engineering, it's very competitive. So I think we're going to talk about the essays next.
So the next part of Jay that was really impressive was you have an opportunity to share who you are through your own voice. And the personal insight questions are really spectacular. And I think the first one that we really want to talk about in terms of the personal insight questions, this person answered UC question number 7. What have you done to make your school or community a better place? And this person, Cynthia, spent Jay spent a lot of time making sure that he shared his passion in the community, neighborhood to neighborhood.
I love it.
From 3 to 18, he organized events and activities that really sought to let people know about the amazing opportunities in STEM. And he did that by creating activities for 3 to 5-year-olds where they were doing origami, and he was telling stories about how you could make things, showing how a laser cutter works, and showing that how toys are made. And you'd see these kids' eyes light up. And they talked about this in the particular essay. And then putting on professional workshops with professionals who worked in STEM and talking about that in their essay. So at the end of the essay, you knew that his passion for STEAM or STEM, he was sharing it with others in the local community.
Well, I know that I talk about this, and we all do. I know we all do. We talk about to students, do something that matters to you, that makes a difference to others, and is mindful of a community, whether that's a local community, a regional, a state, or the global community, right? And that's what he's doing here. He's taking what he loves to do, something that matters to him, makes a difference to others, and is really mindful of the community. So you can't help but be a reader and read that essay along with these others and say, I really like this kid. I really like this kid.
And at each point, you're saying, this is an engineer.
Yes.
This person's going to make the world a better place. The second thing, UC number 6, academic subject that inspires you. And here, he talked about how engineering, through his work in the Makerspace, he was able to teach others because he first showed up at the Makerspace as somebody interested in learning. But they saw his interest, they saw how he worked with other people, and they invited him to teach classes. So he worked as an assistant teacher and then worked his way up to actually teaching classes at the Makerspace. So it was so remarkable. And
then we were able to witness the academic maturity that came with it, with the leadership skills. And the beauty of the UC questions to me is that students really have an array of sides that they can share about themselves. They don't expect that everybody just fits or wedges themselves into one specific thing. if all he wrote about was engineering, he would have been very boring.
Right.
But because he was able to talk about his creative side and how he went out into the community, it really complemented that main focus or passion.
Right. And so the next part where he answered UC question number 2, creative. How do you express your creative side? And for Jay, he was really vulnerable. Like he said, like Martha Stewart or Julia Child, he would put his mistakes out there. Total bomb projects.
Yeah.
Where he would create something and it would fall apart, or it didn't work, and he'd have to figure out. But he would write about that, and people would weigh in, and they would say, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you put that out there in the universe." So the creative side to him was showing that it's okay to make a mistake, because that's how we learn.
Yeah, that's how we learn. Okay, so let me see if I can bring this home, because there's one more essay, I just think this really, all pulls together here, because as a teacher, as a natural educator, I'm also thinking, gosh, when you get to, you learn, right? You learn in the classroom, you learn by what you're doing, and then when you are able to teach, or someone sees that you can teach, then you know that you really have learned. So by him being able to be a teacher, he was going to be an engineer. I mean, this was it. So the last essay, question number 5, a challenge that affected your academic achievement. So this is a little bit sensitive, but we're going to share, because we think this is so important, that what he shared about, and everybody has a challenge in their life, right? There's not a single person, whether it's visible or invisible, everybody is dealing with some challenge in their life. Certainly teenagers and certainly adults are. Mm-hmm. And Jay lost a significant amount of weight early on in high school. He lost a significant amount of weight. And we say that, and we're sharing that because he didn't have to. He chose to write about that. And that showed his vulnerable side, number one. And it showed also, I love the part that he had gone out, and as he was sort of losing the weight, we whether we're losing weight or we're getting better in an academic subject, we're gaining confidence. And that's what was happening to him. Right. He was gaining that confidence, and then he started doing networking and went to an event. And I love that he went to an event. He didn't turn down an invitation, right? We think of engineers and science and math people who keep their head down and want to just be on the computer all the time. No, he went out of his comfort zone and went to this event. And at this networking event, there was a challenge to interview 25 engineers to learn, right? That's how we learn. His father, his mother, neither of them are engineers. So he had to learn somewhere. And he took that challenge. Again, didn't have to. But as he was losing weight, gaining confidence, then he started just doing more things to better himself. And through those 25 interviews, that's when he decided, I'm going to be an engineer. This is what I want to do. And in fact, it all comes together.
And in fact, from one of those interviews, he actually met a professor who invited him to do research. And he did research with this professor for a year that really helped him talk more about what is the scientific process, what is the process of working something out slowly and methodically. And it was taking the first step and showing how overcoming this particular obstacle for him really gave him the confidence to reveal all of this academic passion and potential that was within him.
And a question for both of you is, what do you see now with this generation of students and technology and how it affects their college search? Because I know that it's a double-edged sword.
That's a good question. Yeah, I think with technology and science, they want to see extraordinary minds who are willing to sort of dive in and do the hard work. And what's interesting about technology and doing research or scientific research, it's hard. It is really slow. It's very methodical. But you have to put yourself in an environment where you're testing and retesting and failing and not understanding processes.
And maybe collaborating with real people instead of just being behind a computer.
Right. Yes. So that's where I was taking your question. I mean, there's so many things that come to my mind, but technology, one of the things we talk about is like, get off your phone. Moms and dads out there, they're like, yes, tell them. Get off your phone. In other words, life is happening around you. Life is happening around you, and talking to people. I think so many students these days are scared to, other than texting and emailing, they want to hide behind that. But getting on the phone, talking to someone, learning from people around you. Look what happened. He talked his way into research. So there are lots of ways to connect, actually connect, voice and in person, and you just never know. I think about the kid who got into a very specific program at another college, and she did the same thing. She reached out to about 15 professors, and then one of them invited her, to come to the class, and before you knew it, anyway, there's only about 15 kids that are admitted to this program, and she was one of them. So it pays to look up and look out and start talking to people about what you love, or as a way to find out what you love. Right.
And it's interesting you say, sort of put your technology aside unless it's really benefiting you in something that you're very interested in. So if you're creating video games, or you're creating a new microscope, or you're creating some kind of app, that's really exciting. But at a certain point, and it's funny, one of the things I remembered, whenever we met, he never had his phone.
Oh, interesting.
Never. Not one time. Yeah. Not one time.
So he was focused.
Now...
Oh, he is a unicorn.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we also wanted to let you know about Jay is that Jay applied to 3 UCs. Yes. And he was admitted to UCLA, UC Santa Barbara, and UC San Diego. All 3.
That's incredible. It's incredible, and you might be thinking, we just went over this kid, and he had all these great test scores, and everything seemed to matter. Not everybody with all of these great test scores gets in. So this is really incredible. But hopefully you can see, as you're listening, that you've been listening, you can see this all made sense. This was a great package, meaning he loved this. This is truly what he is called to do. It's what he will do. He's going to follow through, and you can see that authentic match with the major, mechanical engineering.
Yes,
I just want to say that. Keep saying that. He applied to mechanical engineering and got in all 3 places.
This is somebody who can collaborate, somebody who can work well with others, somebody who's willing to be innovative, not afraid to make a mistake, to be vulnerable, to challenge himself through academic classes, both at his high school and outside of his high school. You could tell at every turn, this person was making sure that engineering was the best place for him to study. So in retrospect, Jay did a great job because this is something that he worked on for the whole 4 years he was in high school.
Right.
So can you talk about how this boot camp is going to help people who aren't necessarily engineering majors, and how we can help other people strategize and put together their puzzle? Well,
again, I'm going to just go back to teenagers have all the stories. They have all the components, but they just sometimes don't know how to put them all together. And there are pieces that we talked about here with Jay that he had done on his own before coming to the 2 of you with Q&A. And there are pieces that he did and he started because of your recommendations to sort of put that all together. So it is not too late if you are a rising senior. July is a perfect time to take one of our camps, the virtual camps. There are 2 different weeks in July that you can take, because it's a perfect time to have us look at your overall picture and say, okay, here are a couple of gaps, or here are some suggestions of what you should do, or here, let's look at, is this the right major for you? Are these the right campuses that you should be applying to?
Right.
Each campus is different. I know it doesn't seem like they're different, but remember, the state of California is large and vast, and each regional campus offers something just a little bit different. So it's good to get a professional to have some eyes on your application, your total application, guiding you as to what is right, what you should talk about, how you should share it, what pieces match with other pieces with major, and there's a piece that says what other information should we know. So we take a look very comprehensively, strategically.
And being seasoned application readers, how much time is generally given to each application?
God, you don't want to know.
I would say between 5 to 10 minutes, really. Sometimes 15 minutes if there's really
That's
something
probably
that
rare.
Yeah, if you're really digging through an application. But I think one of the things that you should know is that there are things that you can do. There are classes you can take, activities you can get involved with, or we're going to remind you to ask the people around you. You know, I remember meeting with Jay. We didn't know this whole story the first time we met.
Mm-hmm.
We got little pieces here and there, but asking their parents, going back to their teachers and talking about the work they did, helped them pull together this amazing application.
Right.
So, and we'll help you do that during the boot camp. We'll go over the personal insight questions.
Yep. There are 8 of them. You'll choose 4.
And we'll talk, we'll drive you through each of those. So by the end, you'll have the opportunity to get our sense, our ideas, our passion. We love doing this. I love doing this.
I love doing this. And this is like my favorite part of the application process, is really getting to the nitty gritty and writing those essays, because that's really where you pop off the page. And that's your job, is to come as a raw student and to be open and be able to vulnerable and share with us everything you can. And our job is to take that and help you mold it and really figure it out.
And talk about context.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one more time. This is where you can enroll in the UC application bootcamp. We're going to help you create a killer UC application. Nothing generic or mediocre here. There's 2 options, July 1st through 13th and July 31st through August 1st. But like we said, you can always do it virtually at your own pace. If you're on vacation, you can watch the recorded version and do all the exercises and still turn your essays in for review. So if you use the code GETMEIN, you'll receive 10% off if you sign up before July 1st.
Okay, so
Final words?
Yes, so that's July 10th through 13th.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, not July 1st.
It's not 13 days.
Oh my gosh. She's so right.
It's July 10th through 13th is the first session. Of course, you are all on vacation that first week of July. So it's a 4-day boot camp, and you will complete everything you need for that UC application. Killer
right.
UC application.
That's right.
That's right.
And we hope to meet many Jays, Janes, Emilys,
Susie,
whatever your story
Veronicas, I love it.
Marco.
There we go. There's a corrected version. That's how good we are. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Next week.
When we focus on yet another successful UC applicant.
Wherever you are, may you have a happy and sunny day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.